week 5 of the fantasy baseball season. And here's a few hitters I look to add this week. First guy is Hernandez of the Washington Nationals. So Hernandez, what a season it's been for him so far. And he's been added in 30% of fantasy leagues. And right now, he's going to get an everyday opportunity with the Nats. So obviously, you're going in a different direction this season. So on the season here for Hernandez, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a stolen base, a 371 average, and a 400 on base. So the only thing I don't like is his on-base ratio to batting average, only 29 points higher, which isn't anything here. So he's an early count hitter, is Hernandez. But he's a guy that's only struck out 14 times in 75 at-bats. So the last few games here for Hernandez, May 3rd at the Rockies, 3 for 5 with a run and 2 ribs. May 4th at the Rockies, 2 for 4. May 5th at the Rockies, 2 for 5 with a stolen base. May 7th at the Angels, 1 for 3, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs scored. And May 8th at the Angels, 1 for 4. So right now he's getting the everyday opportunity. Last season we saw end of the season flashes here from Hernandez. And like I mentioned, this national team doesn't have that many great players on their roster after trading everyone away last season at the MLB trade deadline. So right now he's getting an opportunity. He's playing good baseball. And he's a guy definitely would go out there and get this week available still in 69% of fantasy leagues. The next hit is Pena, the Houston Astros. So Pena filling in this season for Correa, who obviously went to the Minnesota Twins. And Pena so far, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a stolen base, a 234 average, which obviously isn't good, and a 298 on base. But for a shortstop to have 6 home runs so far in the season, and a guy getting obviously an everyday opportunity, he's definitely a guy who will go out there and get his Pena. Right now, he's still available in 42% of fantasy leagues. So if he keeps up the good work and the good hitting, especially in the power department, in a week or two, he's not going to be really available at all. So the last few games, May 2nd versus Seattle, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 ribs, and a run. May 3rd versus Seattle, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs, a stolen base. May 5th versus Detroit, 1 for 3, a homer, an RBI, and a run. May 6th versus Detroit, 1 for 4 with a run. May 7th versus Detroit, 1 for 4. And May 8th versus Detroit in a pinch hitting appearance, 1 for 1. So Pena, he's playing good baseball. He's been added in 9% of fantasy leagues. And the Astros obviously have big time plans for him, that he's filling in for Correa and playing decent so far. So I would definitely give him an ad this week, especially if you need help at the shortstop position. The next guy, Hernandez of the Cleveland Guardians. So Jimenez, obviously the big prospect in the Francisco Lindor trade last season with the New York Mets. And he's off to a smoking hot start, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 348 average, and a 352 on base. So obviously this guy don't draw any walks. He's an early count hitter, but he's also a hitter that's been putting the ball in play and getting an everyday opportunity, qualifying at second and shortstop. So if you need middle infield help, I would ride Jimenez out until he struggles, because obviously I don't think this is doable, especially with the on-base to batting average ratio, which is ridiculous, only 0.4%. So the last few games here for Jimenez, May 1st at Oakland, 2 for 5, a run and a rib. May 4th in a doubleheader versus the Padres, 2 for 8, 2 runs, and an RBI. May 5th versus the Blue Jays, 2 for 4 with an RBI. May 7th versus Toronto, 2 for 5, an RBI, a stolen base. And May 8th versus Toronto, 1 for 3. So it seems like each and every game he's at least getting a hit here is Jimenez. And he's a slap hitter. 2 home runs are a little surprising so far for him this early in the season. And right now he's available in 62% of fantasy leagues. And he's another guy that's going to get an everyday opportunity, especially that he was the main piece in that Lindor trade last offseason. The next guy, Rowdy Tellez of the Milwaukee Brewers. So he's been added in 62% of fantasy leagues over the last week here. So he's only available in 32% of leagues. So right here, it's going to be tough to go out there and get him right now. And he's been putting up monster numbers on the season. 7 home runs already, 24 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a 270 average, and a 330 on base percentage. But over the last week, he's really stepped it up. 3 homers, 12 RBIs, a 360 average, and a 407 on base. So Tellez, we know he had power always with the Toronto Blue Jays, but now he's really getting an everyday opportunity here with the Brewers. And he's been going off, especially he had 2 home runs and 8 RBIs. So the last few games here for Tellez, May 1st versus the Cubs, 0 for 1. May 3rd versus the Reds, 1 for 4, a homer and RBI. May 4th versus the Reds, 4 for 6, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 5th versus Cincinnati, 2 for 5 with a rib. May 6th at Atlanta, 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs. May 7th at Atlanta, 0 for 4. And May 8th at Atlanta, 0 for 4. So right here, he's a big, powerful guy, obviously, at the first base and DH position. And obviously, Milwaukee's a good hitter's ballpark as well here. And now his next matchup's going to be in Cincinnati, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him hit 2 or 3 home runs in that stadium. So right now, he's probably only available in 8 or 10 team leagues. And if he's out there, you go get him. Obviously, he had one monster game that really carried him. But he's definitely legit in the power department. And like I mentioned, if he gets an everyday opportunity, which he is, he could hit 25 to 30 home runs this season. The next guy's Harrison Bader of the St. Louis Cardinals. So on the season here for Bader, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 15 runs scored, a 247 average, and a 320 on base. So obviously the stolen base is a lost art in the major leagues, and that's what Bader does. He's a good fielder. He's a kid that goes out there and hustles, and if you need stolen bases, he'll definitely help you in that category, because on base and batting average ain't all that great for Bader, but he's another guy getting an everyday opportunity over there in St. Louis. The last few games for him, May 2nd versus the Royals, 0 for 4. May 3rd at the Royals, 1 for 4. May 4th at the Royals, 1 for 4, an RBI and a run. May 5th at the Giants, 0 for 4. May 6th at San Francisco, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 7th at San Francisco, 3 for 4, 2 runs and a stolen base. And May 8th at San Francisco, 0 for 3 with a stolen base. So right now he's available, is Bader, in 69% of fantasy leagues. And like I mentioned, he's playing every day. You need some stolen bases, and a guy who could score a decent amount of runs. I would go out there and get him. The next hitter is Emmanuel Margot of the Tampa Bay Rays. So Margot, we know, used to be a top prospect years ago in the San Diego Padres system, but he just hasn't panned out to be that top guy that people thought he would be, but he's still been a pretty solid major league ball player. So Margot on the season here for Tampa Bay, 2 home runs, already 19 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, a 313 average, and a 375 on base. So right now, he's on a good pace. Last season, he was a pretty good base steal with 13 on the year with 10 homers and 57 RBIs. But so far this season, he looks better, and he's been contributing. Right now, available still, though, in 85% of fantasy leagues. The last few games for him, May 1st versus Minnesota, 1 for 4 with a run and a rib. May 2nd at Oakland, 3 for 4, run and a rib. May 3rd at Oakland, 2 for 5, 2 runs and RBI. May 4th at Oakland, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. May 5th at Seattle, 1 for 4, run and a stolen base. May 6th at Seattle, 1 for 4, 1 with a home run, 3 RBIs and a pinch hit. May 7th at Seattle, 1 for 3 with a homer, 4 RBIs. And May 8th at Seattle, 2 for 3 with a homer and an RBI. So right here, he's got a home run in 3 straight games, is Margot. And he's on a crazy streak now, a game hitting streak. So he's white hot for this Tampa Bay Ray team. And he's a guy available in tons of fantasy leagues. And I would go out there and get him. If you need a guy who could get on base, a guy who could show some pop and steal bases, I would get Margot this week here, and he can help your fantasy team. And if he struggles, you just go out there and drop him again. The next guy is Ramon Liriano of the Oakland Athletics. So Liriano, he made his season debut yesterday, and he went 0 for 4. So Liriano, we know last season was pretty good. I know he got suspended for PEDs, but he had 14 home runs, 39 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 43 runs scored, 246 average, a 317 on base in only 341 at-bats. So we'll see how he translates now. Hopefully that he's clean and not using performance enhancers. Here is Liriano. So right now he's available in 63% of fantasy leagues. He's a guy that goes out there and hustles. And he's also a player that has a lot of heart here. So he was probably bummed out that he got caught, and hopefully he learns his lesson. But he definitely can help fantasy teams. He's going to have an everyday opportunity over there in Oakland where they don't have many good players, and they're obviously in rebuild mode as well. So if you need a guy who could steal some bases and show some pop, Liriano's a decent ad this week. The next guy, Jesus Aguilar of the Miami Marlins. So Aguilar, decent start so far for him. 3 homers, 14 RBIs, 7 runs scored at 264 batting average, and a 352 on base, which is definitely good. So Aguilar, always a pretty decent on base guy, and a guy who has 20 to 30 home run potential, with hitting 22 homers last season. So the last few games here for Aguilar, May 2nd versus Arizona, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. May 3rd versus Arizona, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. May 4th versus Arizona, 3 for 5, a homer and RBI. May 5th at San Diego, 1 for 4 with a rib. May 6th at San Diego, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 7th at San Diego, 0 for 5. And May 8th at San Diego, 2 for 4 with a run. So right now, he's going out there and he's picking things up, especially this week here. He's starting to hit the baseball. He's starting to get going. And he's available in 70% of fantasy leagues. And like I mentioned, we know what Aguilar is capable of. And last season, he had a great year, 22 homers, 93 RBIs with a 261 average. And he definitely could finish the season with those type of numbers in the middle of that Miami Marlin lineup. So right now, while he's getting going, definitely go out there and get him this week. The next guy, Brandon Drury of the Cincinnati Reds. So the Reds, it's been a horrid season for them so far this year, with only 4 wins on the season. But Brandon Drury, he's been one of the only bright spots on the season. 5 home runs, 15 RBIs, 13 runs scored, 274 average, and a 325 on base this season here. So he qualifies at second, third, and outfield. And last season with a cup of coffee with the New York Mets, he was pretty good as well with 4 homers, 14 RBIs, and 7 runs scored in only 84 at-bats. So right now he's available in a whopping 92% of fantasy leagues. And he's playing every day, like I mentioned, batting second usually here for this Red team. And he's a guy who would take a shot on in obviously deeper leagues. So the last few games here for Drury: May 1st at the Rockies, 2 for 3 with a homer and a rib. May 3rd at Milwaukee, 0 for 4. May 4th at Milwaukee, 1 for 4, an RBI and a run. May 5th at Milwaukee, 1 for 5 with an RBI. May 7th in a doubleheader versus the Pirates, 5 for 8, a homer, 5 RBIs, and 4 runs scored. And May 8th versus the Pirates, 1 for 3 with a run. So he's hitting the baseball, he's getting on base, he's showing some power with the 5 homers. And obviously he plays in a great hitter's park. He's very versatile as well, so I definitely will give him an ad this week in more deeper leagues. And final hit I looked at this week's Bryce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins. So Bryce Lewis, a prospect for seasons with this Twin team, but they finally give him a call now to the major leagues. And so far in the early going, he's 3 for 10 is Bryce Lewis, and one of the top prospects we've heard about for years in the major leagues. So right now he did get added in 22% of fantasy leagues, but he's still available in a ton of fantasy leagues at 76%. So if you need some shortstop help, Lewis, he's a guy that could do a lot of things. He could steal bases, he could hit for some power, and he was a top overall pick in the 2017 draft here. So right now, with Alvarez out, he's going to be starting at short, either second base for most time. But he got off to a decent start with 310 average, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases in 24 games in AAA is Lewis. So the time is now with him with Alvarez out. He's a guy, like I mentioned, he's a top prospect, top draft pick, and the Twins feel like they got a chance this season to win the Central, and I think they do too. So right now, if Lewis is out there and you need some shortstop or infield help, if he's going to qualify at second base eventually here, I definitely will go out there and get Bryce Lewis. So that's a few hitters I look to add here for Week 5 of the fantasy baseball season.